Hi, I'm Ava, and today I'm going to be presenting on the management of the harvested and exploited lake sturgeon within the Great Lakes Basin. So just some background information on the lake sturgeon. Was once a prominent species within the Great Lakes Basin. It's recognized for its really distinct prehistoric look, and it's been recorded in the fossil record for a really long period of time, so it makes the fish really unique. It's also the largest indigenous freshwater fish to the region. So beginning in the 1800s, the lake sturgeon began being regarded as a bycatch. So fishermen would catch it in their nets, just see it as a nuisance, and then quickly disregard it. They'd throw it as fuel for their ships, leave it on the beach to rot. But then this attitude began to change in the late 1800s when lake sturgeon began to be recognized as a valuable commodity because of its meat and caviar. So then this fishing boom erupted where pretty much for the next 40 years, the fishing market went completely unregulated, which obviously had some repercussions. And this led the population to collapse in the 1920s, and it really hasn't recovered since. So some things that have obviously led to the population being so low is this unregulated fishing market for a long period of time in the late 1800s. However, since then, it's also had some difficulties in recovering because of its late maturation rate and its really slow population growth. Its females in its population don't mature for almost 20 years, and then they only reproduce every 4 years, which obviously makes growing a repressed population very difficult. Additionally, the Great Lakes has been victimized by the sea lamprey, an invasive species that feeds on the lake sturgeon, which makes it additionally difficult to recover. And then finally, just in the Great Lakes in general, there's a prominence of loss of habitat, fragmentation, pollution, and a decrease in water quality, which has also affected the lake sturgeon. So some previous management methods that have been going on is in order to eliminate the sea lamprey, they've been using a chemical called TFM. However, it's been found to also affect lake sturgeon and lead to high mortality rates in the population. So although it decreases sea lamprey, it also sometimes decreases lake sturgeon. So it's been kind of finding this balance between what is really the most effective way to manage both populations. Another thing that's been a problem is a previous management effort is they've actually outlawed commercial fishing of the lake sturgeon in the Great Lakes Basin, but it's still threatened in 19 out of the 20 states in the region. So some current methods of management that are going on is an example of acoustic telemetry, which is pretty much the tagging of fish in order to monitor spatial ecology, movement throughout habitats, and just monitor the fish in general to track their health, their well-being, their breeding, and different things along that. And there's been harvest restrictions implemented in a lot of recreational fishing areas. There's bag limits, seasonal restrictions. Additionally, there's egg collections and hatcheries that are being formed in order to help grow these populations of lake sturgeon, because like I mentioned, it's very difficult for them to reproduce, and when they do reproduce, it's very rare. So these egg collections and hatcheries are helping to grow those populations. And finally, just a major effort that's been going on is just restoring the Great Lakes Basin in general. So that's through the Great Lakes Initiative, which is working on improving water quality, decreasing pollution, and hopefully just improving habitats in general for all species, not just the lake sturgeon. So some advice that I have moving forward, some of my recommendations are to develop a more cohesive plan in order to manage the lake sturgeon. So currently, the species is not listed as an endangered species under the Endangered Species Act by the federal government. However, as I mentioned previously, 19 out of 20 states do recognize that it's threatened. However, since it's not under the Endangered Species Act, there's no federal legislation that involves management of the species. So pretty much states are left to their own discretion to do whatever they want or however they see fit. This is good in a lot of options because it leaves for creative management efforts. However, it also leads for inconsistencies, and the lake sturgeon is known to migrate from habitat to habitat within this region. It's not very situated in one area. So when you have incohesive plans, it makes it very difficult to solve the problem. So I would recommend setting a federal minimum standard that states can then build on. The most recovered populations are when there's no recreational fishing, not just no commercial fishing, so the outlawing of recreational fishing. And I think it's important to continue tagging, continue egg collection, and just approach the lake sturgeon from like a holistic management of improving the entirety of the Great Lakes. So just overall, the restrictions that are in place right now are not enough to help keep this great population intact. And in order to improve in the future, we need to recognize that the sturgeon are an indicator of the entire Great Lakes region, and their inability to recover just reflects how pollution, habitat fragmentation, climate change are affecting this region, and that management is necessary not just for the sturgeon, but to improve the overall health of the Great Lakes Basin. So, thank you.